first art video. I kind of messed up while I was recording and didn't remember to minimize the little counter in the corner. I will do my best to make sure I get rid of that next time, but for now we're stuck with it, and I guess this means you get to see how long exactly it took me to do this piece. I didn't record that sort of initial sketch where I do that, like all those pinks lines, but that was mostly just me looking at a reference picture and then just making the shapes I wanted. And now, as you can see, I'm going over with like a more defined sketch, like what I'm going to work with for the final. This is going to be Eagle Marin from Saint Seiya, because I really love Saint Seiya, and the fact that the original anime is on Netflix is probably the only thing getting me through quarantine. So Saint Seiya was an anime manga series that came out in the 80s, and it's had a few different English dubs, and the international title for the series is called Knights of the Zodiac, and you know, it's a lot of fun. There are some issues because it's from the 80s, but overall it's a good time, at least I think so. Netflix did reboot the series recently, I think last fall, and then earlier this year they came out with like a season 2, and I hated it. I have another YouTube channel where I just record myself talking to my camera and reviewing, you know, books and movies. The first video I ever did on that channel was talking about the Saint Seiya reboot and how much I hated it. It's, I think, 20 minutes, and sound quality sucks, but I will link it in the description if you would like to know all of my detailed opinions about why I did not like the reboot. Yeah, it's a time. Anyway, so yeah, the original is also on Netflix, so I would definitely recommend watching that instead. And yeah, I'm sorry. I don't know what to talk about. Let's see. Marin is not my favorite character. My favorite character is actually Shun, but I hadn't, and like I've been making a lot of Saint Seiya fan art the last year or so. Like if you check out my Tumblr and just the Saint Seiya tag, like just follow, you'll see a decent amount of art. I've drawn Shun a few times, but I hadn't done any art of Marin, so I thought I should do her at some point. And here you can see me doing line art. I tend to struggle a lot with my line art. I used to watercolor paint all the time, so doing digital lines is a little tricky for me. I'm getting better at it, I would say. You know, practice makes perfect, but it's a thing that still frustrates me. So I would absolutely, if you're gonna do stuff like this, I would, you know, recommend that you do warm-ups. I spent a lot of time just like doodling on like a separate, like, I don't know, what do you call it, a document, separate image file, just squiggling around and trying to make lines and shapes so that I could have an easier time doing the lines for this one. And I think they turned out alright. In the end, I'm not sure how happy I am with the coloring, especially on her mask. But, I mean, my background is pretty impressive, if we ever get there. I definitely recommend reference pictures too. Like, I had a reference for the pose, and then I had a few references of her, of Marin, the characters to look at so that I could get all of the details. One of the things that I hate about her original design is that, like, her armor has, like, boob cups. And, one, I'm pretty sure those are actually really unsafe if you actually, like, would like, fight in them. And I just hate them as an aesthetic. I think they're ugly, and I hate them so much. So I did away with the boob cups. I think it was either early this year or late last year. I also did some art of Shina, and I changed her armor too to get rid of the boob cups because they're stupid and I hate them. So yeah, 10 out of 10. Do not recommend boob cups. And this audio is all over the place. That's cool. And as you can see when I'm doing like digital stuff, I zoom in on things a lot. And then I zoom back out. And then I zoom back in. And then I zoom back out. And hopefully that's not unpleasant to watch. I will try and edit things out if that doesn't work. I think this video is nearly 30 minutes long. I'm gonna try and edit out some things, I guess. We'll see how it goes. Like I mentioned, I have another YouTube channel where I complained about the Saint Seiya reboot, and I mostly started this one because I just really like making art and would like to make money as an artist more so than as a reviewer of nerd content on YouTube. But the other channel is nice to sort of get that energy out. I didn't go to school for art. I went and got a history degree, which I don't particularly recommend, but I did it, and so I spent like 5 years of my life learning how to write research papers and to critically analyze the media I consume. So I have a lot of energy for that, and so that review channel is kind of nice because I just research the thing I'm reviewing and then give my opinion on it coupled with the research, and sometimes the research makes me appreciate the thing different. I actually hated the reboot more the more I like researched it. That it was just like the excuses that the production guys like had for making Shun a girl like just made me angry. So yeah, that's a time. So here's me doing a finished a line art, and now we've moved on to a sloppy background, I think. So I'm using Clip Studio Paint, and I have downloaded extra brushes, but I pretty much never use them. I pretty much only use the brushes that came with Clip Studio, and the one I used for the background is, I think, the crayon brush. Which is the thing I've liked a lot lately. I also used it, I did some Shiryu fan art like a week ago, and I used it for that background too, and I like it because it's easy to just like plop down color and give the general sense of a thing, but it's kind of blurry and it's not like distracting from the actual image. But sometimes by the time I'm done, I'm like, oh, I hate that background, I should have done something better. But I'm kind of lazy and don't want to do like really detailed backgrounds. Like I wouldn't actually want to like in great detail draw that cliff, so like just splashing colors down is fine. By the time I'm done with this image, I think the thing that I hate the most is probably the way I did Marin's mask. I think I could have maybe made the base color darker so those highlights show up a lot better, but you know, it is what it is. I know now what I would do differently for sure next time, so if I draw her again, I can fix that. So when I did my Shina fan art, that was a watercolor painting. So I think I make better color choices when I watercolor paint, because like when you paint digitally, you know, you can go in and you can edit whatever color that layer that color is on and change it, and you can't do that when you watercolor paint. So I think sometimes I just make decisions like, oh, I can go back and when I digitally paint that, I can just go back and fix that later, and then I decide I don't want to fix that, or everything. I don't know. It's weird. Anyway, so I will do better on her mask next time. I think it just looks really plain, and boring. Anyway, here we are, moving on to the rest of the color. Pretty much how I do that is I just color. You can see me zooming in and zooming out and getting individual little bitty spots. But I will put like the main flat color on one layer, and then I will clip a layer on top of it, and that's what I do like the shadings and the highlight on. That way if I hate it, I can just delete it and start over, but the color, like the base color, won't be affected. Sometimes I will make a sort of palette layer where I put all the colors I intend to use, or that I do use. Like as I go, I put those colors there, that way I can just go back and sample them later if I have to fix something or redo something. And this video is kind of long, and I apologize. I thought about like actually cutting stuff, but I didn't know. Yeah, I feel like you might miss a lot if I actually edited out things. So, I don't know, we'll get better. If I do this enough, my digital art will go faster, and so maybe my videos won't be as long. And maybe I'll actually put more effort into the voiceover part, because right now I'm just chit-chatting at the mic while I watch the video play. So yeah, that's a time. I like to use the blur tool a lot to, I think it's the running color brush blur thing. I use all of the stock options for Clip Studio Paint, so, because I've downloaded brushes, but I don't like using them. Like, I'm never happy with the brushes I've downloaded, so I always go back to the ones that came with the program. And I guess it works for me, so whatever it takes. Hopefully this isn't, like, boring. It'd be more interesting if I, had more to talk about, but I don't have a lot of tips. The last time I took an art class was in high school because, I have a history degree, which is a compromise with my parents because my dad wanted me to go to business school and my mom wanted me to be a nurse. And the interesting thing is that I have a learning disability. It's called dyscalculia, and it is like dyslexia but with like mathematical stuff. So I've gotten good enough. I can, for the most part, read numbers, but generally if I have to say what those numbers are, like if I had to read them aloud, I will mix them up for sure. Even if I recognize like that's like if you tell me to read off a number like 739, I'm gonna understand when I look at it, oh, it's 739, but when I say it, it's gonna be like 793. So that's frustrating. And that's just kind of, it's actually the least problematic part of this. I really struggle with math, and I didn't find out about this until like I'd finished college, but I knew in school that like I had a really hard time with math and that I couldn't go into things like business or like accounting because the numbers can't like swim around for you. Because that's very important that you get those numbers right. And it's especially important if you're a nurse and you have to, like, give medication. So I knew I couldn't trust myself to not mess that up in a horrendous way. So I couldn't do either of those things. And my parents really weren't thrilled with the idea of me becoming an artist and going to art school. So I pretty much just did art for funsies after high school. And I got a history degree entirely because it had the least, like the smallest number of math requirements at my university. So, yeah. That's how that happened. So, I mean, I guess I could be better at art, like, if I had committed to doing it, like, really, just threw myself into it. Instead of getting a degree in, research, I probably would be better at this, especially the digital stuff by now, but, it is what it is. Recently, though, my dad looked at some of my stuff and is like, hey, maybe you should try and be an illustrator of some sort, professionally. Like, you go to conventions all the time, see if you can, like, make friends with people there, get a job, make connections, which was kind of frustrating because this is something I've wanted to do for a long time, and I could have been doing it sooner if I'd had the support, but, he didn't really think of it as a viable option, so he never did. But now he's like, oh, hey, you could do this. So I guess it's nice that he supports me now. Just wish he'd done it when I was in college. Because maybe I would have enjoyed college more. I'm probably one of the few people you're ever going to meet who's like, I hated going to college, and I don't recommend going to college unless you're gonna specifically be something like a nurse or a doctor or an accountant. So yeah, that was probably too much information about me. So I've been watching a lot of the Saint Seiya remake made me really mad. But then a couple of weeks later, Netflix started putting the original series back up on their platform. Or not back up, but they put it on their platform. And they'd never... Like, they have their own specific dub. And it's actually pretty good. Because I've watched it in Japanese and I watched it again in English. And the dub is actually pretty good. If anything, it makes, like, Shiryu look more like he's in love with Seiya. Just saying. He's willing to throw his life away so readily for that boy. And it seems so much worse in the English version. But, you know, which I think is funny, but, you know, it's not a bad series once you get past the everything is so painfully cheesy in 80s. There are some issues with, like, racism and, like, sexism, but it's definitely, this is the 1980s, and no one really thought twice about that, and sometimes it's used as a plot point, like they're trying to overcome that terrible thing, because it is terrible, so, I mean, that's cool. I'm apparently saying that's cool a lot. But, no, so they had like a season or two at the beginning of the year, and then in April they put up more episodes, and so that's pretty much all I've been doing, is alternating between watching Saint Seiya again and again and again. And I started watching My Hero Academia because all of my friends are really into it, and I'd never actually seen it, and I've got all of this time now because quarantine, and I was working at a movie theater because you can't get jobs with history degrees where I live, and so I was working at the movie theater, and they shut down back in March, so I've just been watching 2 animes, 3. I rewatched JoJo's Bizarre Adventure also. Yeah, this year's been weird. I think everybody's had a weird year. I also had to have surgery back in April, which was not a good time, so that's why I watched JoJo's again. I finally caved and ordered a new tablet. Like, mine is like one of those little tiny Wacom tablets, and I finally caved and bought a new one because I've had mine forever. It's gonna take a while to get here, but I'm kind of excited when it does, because, you know, I have finally upgraded. But yeah, for like the first time in like my life, I will have upgraded. So I'm looking forward to that. It should be a good time. Hopefully my mailman doesn't just like chuck it over the fence. He's prone to doing that. Also, if you notice any like skips in the footage, that's because I had to pause a lot to let my dog outside, or just because he wanted attention. So I would pause it, and sometimes I would forget to turn it back on right away, and then I was like, oh crap. So I had to hurry up and flick it back on. I don't think you miss too much. Mostly just me adding in some color here and there. Yeah. Use like hard black in any of my art outside of like the line art, because I think it's kind of too harsh. Like, even when I paint, I don't use black, I just use like Payne's gray. I mean, like, traditionally paint. I don't use black for any of my shading unless I need like a particularly dark shadow. But generally I just use like Payne's Gray or like a really dark blue to darken up my darks. And then you can like shade on top of that and make highlights, and it looks more dimensional than like just straight black would. Recently I did experiments with like different colored line art, and I like that. It's actually kind of fun. Those pieces are a lot simpler than this one, and maybe I will do more of that sometime. But I think doing some of those pieces also helped like make me more comfortable with just doing digital art in general. So, you know, sometimes it's a good idea to mess around and do different things with your art, because it can help you do the regular stuff too, you know? Like, yeah, I draw a lot of anime fan art, but it's also nice to just do like realistic human portraits, or just, you know, just look at pose drawing, like poses, and copy those, like how real people pose and copy that, and it helps, I think, make the rest of my art, even if it's anime, look better. And I think I used to just do backgrounds that were really plain and just had like texture. And I think starting to do these sort of like squiggly backgrounds helps. Even if it's not like super detailed, I think it can help add to your piece. Because mine is just like I said earlier, it's just like the crayon tool, and I just laid color down, but it adds something. And if it's like that, it's not like it's taking away focus from the part that I actually liked and put a lot of detail in, which is the actual character drawing. So, I mean, you don't have to do those things, but I think that it helps, and it makes your art look a little nicer. It like one-ups your game. And even just like implied backgrounds. Like, I've done pieces where it's just like there's this implication that there should be a wall there and here's a window, and I think that even just that little bit helps sort of make a piece look really nice, especially when it's just floating around in a sea of other just character drawings you do. Because then it makes them all look sort of different from each other if there's even just a really simple background. I really like drawing characters though, so I have this problem where my sketchbook has just pages and pages of me just drawing characters. They're not all Saint Seiya characters, I promise. I really like Saint Seiya. I was thinking of starting a webcomic, so I've been trying to come up with character designs for that. So there's characters upon characters. If I could get paid to be a character designer, that would be cool, but we'll see. I who knows? And so we're almost done. Yeah, I ended up doing this in 2 sittings, so that's why like the timer changes down in the bottom. had fun, and I will see you next time. If there are any characters you would like me to draw, feel free to leave a comment. Otherwise, just like and subscribe. That would be great, and I will see you next time.